Hi there. In the previous video in this series, we created this table, which was kind of a record of butterfly sightings that our class had done. So we'd set up little drop-down lists so you could choose your own name from the list, the date that you saw the butterfly, whereabouts you were at the time, which is a free text field at the moment, and then you could put in some additional notes if you wanted to. This bit was a drop-down list which looks at the most common 10 British butterflies. And then we had various different XLOOKUP functions that compare the common name with our butterfly table, which looks like this, and brings across the scientific name and a couple of images automatically. And then each student got to enter how many they saw of each species. And what I would like to do with this now is start doing some pivot tables and pivot charts to kind of bring this information together and see how many of each species we saw or how many each child collected and so on. So what we're going to do is start anywhere inside this table. This has been set up by using this format as table option. So you don't need to highlight the whole thing. As long as you're in it, the pivot table will detect the size of the table automatically. And then I'm going to go to my insert tab, and there's an option called pivot chart. And when you choose the drop down, you get a choice of pivot chart or pivot chart and pivot table. I'm going to go pivot chart and pivot table. And can you see it's picked up the whole table automatically, where normally it would have said A1 to M49 or whatever. It will pick up the name of the table that's in there, and you can give those more sensible names if you want to. And then I'm going to say I want it to appear on a new worksheet, and I've got, this is the area where my pivot table is going to form, and this is where my pivot chart is going to end up. So let's say, first of all, I'm interested to find out how many of each species we've seen. So I'm going to just drag the header for common name and pop it in my axis. And can you see this is all the butterflies that we've seen? And then the how many field is just going to be a total. So can you see, as soon as I put it in the values area, it comes up sum of how many. Now, if you didn't want a total, if you wanted an average or something, you can go into this option where it says value field settings, and you can change your mind about what you want to do with the data. But for us, sum works really well. So I'm just going to move this to make it a little bit bigger, and we can see how many of each species we've got. Now, what would be really cute, I think, is to have something called stack and scale, where you have an image and you use the image to represent a certain number of butterflies or a certain number of cars or whatever it is. I think it's possible to do this with an actual photograph if you wanted to, but as our columns are quite small and we've got quite a few different types of butterfly, I think that would be quite difficult to do in this instance. So I think we're going to do it with a little sort of butterfly symbol rather than doing one column for each species. So I'm just going to click onto one of the columns, and can you see the whole set are all selected at once at the moment? And then on the top here, can you see I've got 3 new tabs have turned up: Pivot Chart Analyze, Design, and Format. And on the Format tab, there's an option called Shape Fill, which normally just allows you to change the colours of your columns. But if I go down to the bottom here, there's an option called Picture. And then you can choose where you want to get your picture from. For this one, you could search the from icons, because they have lovely little symbols that might be a butterfly, it might be a car, or whatever it is that you're looking for. I happen to have already found the icon that I liked, so I've saved it on my computer. So I'm going to choose this option where it says from file, and this is my little butterfly icon, although you could do this with a real photograph if you wanted to. And then when I insert it, don't panic. I know it looks very ugly at the moment, but its default behavior is to stretch the photograph to fit in the column. So you can see at the moment it doesn't look great. But have a look on your Format tab. On the far left-hand side, there's an option called Format Selection. And because we're still selected on the columns, if I click onto Format Selection, it changes the panel on the right-hand side to show me information about the area of the chart that I've got currently selected. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this little gap width bar to make my columns a little bit wider, which will obviously improve how the image looks. And the other thing I'm going to do is if I click on this little bucket, at the moment, can you see it's set to an option called stretch, which is why it's kind of distorting the picture. And what I want to do is choose an option called stack and scale, because what that is saying is you get one picture for a certain number of units. Now mine are going up in steps of 50, so it sort of makes sense to me. Every time you've seen 50, you get a whole butterfly. And can you see then where you've only seen less than 50, you get one image. Where you've seen around about 150, you get 3 images. So you can sort of mentally count the number of butterflies to see how many you saw of that species. And obviously you can adjust that. I could maybe say, oh, I'll have it as 25 or whatever. And that will give me more butterflies. Or if I made it less than that, if I made it 100, that will give me fewer butterflies. So whatever is suitable for your data. I think because we've got our grid lines at 50, I think 50 was quite a good option. So I'm going to set it back to 50 for that one. The other thing it might be quite nice to do at this point is to put in some labels on my chart. So I'm going to go to the Design tab at the top here. And can you see on the very first button on the Design tab, it's called Add Chart Element. And I'm going to put in, I think, data labels. Now, at the moment, that's set to none. But if I say outside end, for example, can you see that's the number of each species at the top of each column? And if you wanted to maybe format those, make them bigger, different color or what have you, if I click onto one of those numbers, can you see the whole series are selected? And then I could maybe make them a bit bigger, make them bolder, change their color, whatever you would like to do. I'm also going to change the chart title to something a little bit more meaningful. So instead of just saying total, that can say, what should we call it? Butterflies spotted by species. Now, while I think this chart looks really nice, it does mean that every type of butterfly looks the same. And as we've got photographs of all the different species, it would be really nice to do a chart like this, but with a different photograph for each species. Now, this one is going to take a little bit of patience. So I'll do the first couple at normal speed, and then I'll just speed the video up so you can see it all happening without having to wait for it in real time. But first of all, what I need to do is go back to my butterfly spotter table, then go to Insert, Pivot Chart, and Pivot Table again. Just say OK, so I get a new sheet. I'm going to do exactly the same as I did last time, pop common name on my axis and how many in my values. Now with this one, I want to make as much space as I can possibly get away with because they're going to be quite big. Now, do you remember when I clicked onto the bar, it selected the whole series, and then on the Format tab, can you see it now says Series Total at the moment? And if I click onto that Format selection, that's what brings up this Format Data Series panel. And I want to make those columns as wide as I can get away with so my picture is visible. And it's this gap width here that I'm going to change. And you can take the gap width completely down to 0, so they all kind of flood into each other. I think I might just make, I don't know, a 2 or 3%, just so I've got a little gap between each column. Now, last time we had the same butterfly for every column. This time I would like to do each individual butterfly as I go along. So I'm going to start by clicking onto brimstone, and can you see it's actually called common brimstone. Just this column is selected now and all the others are not. So when I change the options, it's just changing it for brimstone. Then I'm going to go to my little bucket, go to picture or texture fill, and choose insert from a file because I've saved them all. And there is my common brimstone picture. Insert that. Now, as it happens, there is only one picture needed for this because there's so few of them were seen, but it's still set to an option called stretch, which I don't want in case those figures are going to change in the future. So I'm going to stack and scale them to 50 units a picture like we did last time, which means I get an almost complete picture of a butterfly. And then I've just got to have the patience to do that for each one. So I'm going to go to comma, go picture or texture fill, insert my picture, find my comma, set it to stack and scale, and set it to 50 units. And I'll come back in a second when I've done the rest of them and you can see what it looks like. Now, hey presto, with the power of video editing, I have done all of them. Now, because we've got the picture of each butterfly in each column now, I don't think we need to have a legend, and the pictures are very tiny in the legend anyway. So to get rid of the legend, if I make sure I've got my chart selected, on the design tab at the top here, where it says add chart element, you need to look for where it says legend, and I'm just going to set mine to none, and that will give me a little bit more space going along that way. I'd quite like the data labels like we did last time, so I'm going to go back to add chart element, data labels, let's say outside end again, and again if I select them I can make them a bit bigger and a bit bolder so they're a little bit more obvious, and then I'll change my chart title to something meaningful. Let's say total by species or something. Now, because this is a pivot chart, it means if any data is changed in my table, then it will change in here, but there is a caveat to that. Let me just rename this to, let's say this is species count with photo or something, so we remember to come back to the right one. I need to go back to the original table, and let me just check the very first one. Do you remember this first one is brimstone? At the moment the count is 39. If I go back to my table, and I'm just going to fake it slightly, and this brimstone record here, let's say, was 3 originally. So let's say, oh, actually that was 30. If I go back to my chart, at the moment, it still says the total is 39. So obviously that hasn't worked, but it's because it's a pivot table, you need to remember to refresh it. So on the pivot table, sorry, the pivot chart analyze tab, there is an option called refresh, and watch my chart as I hit that refresh. Can you see it's got a new count of 66 and it's updated on here? And if I go and have a look at brimstone on my table, it's also updated on here, and the other species count one that we did has updated as well. So the refresh applies to all of that data, even if they're on separate sheets. So if you've made kind of a little dashboard with lots of different charts on it, they'll all refresh at the same time.